Hi, this is Greg from OnlineLanguageAcademy.com, and I've got a really special video for you today. I'm happy to be joined on the channel with another YouTube English teacher. Her name is Adriana from English with Adriana, and we are going to be talking about stereotypes. She is Australian, so we're going to be talking about some stereotypes that exist about Australia and Australian people. This video is a two-part video, so if you want to watch her ask me about British stereotypes, stereotypes about England and British people in general, then after this video, please go to her channel to watch part 2. You can find the link in the description, and there will also be a link at the end of the video. Okay, so let's go down under and speak a little bit about Oz with Adriana. Hello, Adriana.
Hi, Greg.
Hi, nice to have you on the channel.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so where are you from, Adriana?
To begin, I'm from Australia, but at the moment I'm living abroad. I'm from Melbourne, Australia, and yeah, I've been abroad for about 8 years now.
Okay, very nice. So it's strange, you know, because you've come to Europe from Australia, and it seems so many of my, well, not so many of my friends, but one of my best friends, and certainly a lot of people I used to go to school with, are now living in Australia. It seems like so many people are going to live there. It must be some sort of paradise down under.
Well, I can say the same for the UK because a lot of my friends have also gone to the UK to work abroad, and
Okay, so we've just switched.
But it's I've heard that maybe it's a lot warmer for them, or they just want to experiment and see what it's like living down under.
Maybe. Well, they're certainly very happy. The ones I've spoken to, they love life down there. But there are some stereotypes about Australians that I think we've naturally got to learn since that has happened. And you know, watching Australian TV shows as well, we certainly have a lot of stereotypes, some good, some bad, about Australia. So if it's all right with you, I'd like to run some past you, and you can tell me if they're true or not.
Bring it on.
Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay, all right then. So the first one is that at some point, if you do move to Australia, at some point, either a spider, a shark, a snake, a jellyfish, or a crocodile will kill you. How true is that?
Oh, okay. I've never seen a crocodile in my life. So I'm from Melbourne, and in Melbourne, you know, I've made jokes about that. In my backyard, I have a kangaroo, I have crocodiles, or snakes, but it's not true. I've never had, like in some movies, even my husband's told me, like, do you have snakes in your rooms and like spiders coming out from the windows? In Melbourne, no. In bigger cities, no. If you're out somewhere in the outback, I can't speak for people living out in the outback or in the countryside. I'm assuming that most likely there are more deadly animals. But if you're living in a big city, in a suburban area, then no. But you did say about jellyfish and sharks. So I know we were talking a little bit about this before, but a lot of people don't realise when we go swimming in Australia, so we have a lot of beaches in Melbourne, in Australia in general, and we always swim between the yellow flags. There's always a lifeguard watching, and we can only swim to a certain distance. So maybe I'm lying now, but about 20 meters out. This is something that in Europe, you know, when I'm swimming in Croatia in the ocean, I'm like, I always make a joke. Like I go in the water and I'm like, jellyfish, seaweed, this, that. My husband's like, stop doing that. And I'm like, yeah, but I have a phobia because of jellyfish and because of sharks. Because in Australia, it's true. Sometimes it depends. A tide can bring in jellyfish and they can be lethal. So I am, even to this day, still scared of jellyfish. They can be deadly, but it's not that bad. Like I always go swimming in the beach in Australia, but Yeah, this is my fear: sharks and jellyfish. Jellyfish more than sharks.
Yeah, it would worry me. I do like the idea of going to Australia and the beautiful beaches we see on TV, but I'd feel the same. I'd feel like I wouldn't be too keen on swimming in those shark-infested waters. And yeah, it seems scary.
No, and if you're swimming between the flags, then it's fine. And I'm not worried about sharks, but jellyfish. Jellyfish can be very deadly. Yeah.
Okay. Well, another thing about talking about the beach, another stereotype we have about Australian people, I guess this comes from the TV programs we watch there, but we think that all Australian people are fit, like physically, fit, strong, and tanned. I mean, we have an image of just them, running down the beach, Baywatch style, and they're all gorgeous. And is it true? It's like a physical paradise for...
Of course, well, Australians are the hottest people out.
I'm asking the wrong person.
Well, I can't say that Australians are ugly, but when you're talking about Australians being fit and tanned, yeah, especially in Brisbane, up in Queensland, because they do have a lot of sunshine. So in Melbourne, we have summer for about 4 months, but it's not always hot in Melbourne. So we get tanned during the summer months, but during the winter we're white. Up in the northern states, northern parts of Australia, I have this image of people living up north that they're fit and tanned. I wouldn't say that everybody is like, I don't know, Pamela Anderson or, I know we're talking about Baywatch here, but from Home and Away and Neighbours, no, not everybody looks like this. But up north, I think that they do. So this is maybe my stereotype of people living up in Queensland.
All right. So not everybody's like they are on Home and Away and Neighbours.
No.
Home and Away and Neighbours, Home and Away and Neighbours were two programs for the people watching. Two soap operas that we watch a lot of in England. When I was growing up, I would watch both Home and Away and Neighbours every day, Monday to Friday. It was just part of our general life.
Do you know they're still airing Home and Away and Neighbours? It's still on.
Yeah. I regularly look online and just see if it's still airing, or see what the people when we were growing up, what those actors are doing now, just from curiosity. But some really, really famous people started out on those programs. Kylie Minogue, probably the most famous. She started on Neighbours, didn't she?
Yeah, Neighbours. She started out on Neighbours. Yeah.
But it's definitely a lot of famous Australians have been in one of those two programs at some point.
Yes, they're classics.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I've got another stereotype for you. Your country is home to many animals that we don't have anywhere else in the world. and I think we kind of had the idea that there's a koala bear in every tree in Australia. Is that true?
In every tree? I wish.
Every single tree in Australia, there's a koala bear up there.
I wish, like around where my parents are from, we're about 20 k's out from the centre of Melbourne. There's koala, what am I talking about? Kangaroos everywhere.
Okay,
but koalas, I wish they were on every tree. I've seen a koala in a zoo, and we were in a sanctuary, in a wildlife sanctuary when we were in Melbourne 6 months ago, and I barely saw a koala. So no, they're not in all trees. They're actually, I think, I may be lying here, but I'm pretty sure that they're endangered due to dingoes or due to some animals hunting them. There's not many of them, or eucalyptus trees, because they live in eucalyptus trees. Because of deforestation again, but
wow,
I'm really disappointed that I haven't seen them as much as I would like to have.
So you've only seen one in a zoo?
Yes, and in a wildlife sanctuary, so open range zoos, etc. But I've never seen. They sleep all the time, and when me and my husband was searching for it, I'm like, where is this koala? I'm like, you're in Australia for the first time, and I just want to see a koala.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's disappointing. That is bitterly disappointing. But you mentioned kangaroos were like everywhere, 20 kilometers outside of your city, and that's another stereotype we have. In fact, I was just looking online actually at different people's stereotypes about Australians and Australia before we did this recording, and I read somewhere that yeah, some people believe that Australians ride kangaroos to work. So they don't drive to work; they just get on their kangaroo and they hop to work.
Yeah, why would we drive cars when there's so many kangaroos? Like, really? I don't know. Like, you know, in Australia, we're a very eco-friendly country, so we make use. I'm joking. Okay,
Exactly.
jokes aside.
Jump on a kangaroo.
Probably
It makes
some
perfect sense.
It really does. But no, no, no.
But they are easy to see, though. I mean, if I go to Australia, I'm pretty much guaranteed to see a kangaroo, right?
Yes, so interesting. We were in Australia last year in 2017 in August, and my husband and my mother decided to go feed the kangaroos, as I like to say. I'm scared of kangaroos because if you've seen kangaroos, they're really like big, about 2 meters high, and they like they stand on their tail and they can kick and they fight. We'd actually seen them, but they're actually pests in Australia. And there were actually at one point, a friend was telling me that there were more kangaroos than people in Australia. So they had to do something about them because they're not good for the land. So I don't know if you know that in Australia, our dish is actually kangaroos. So you can buy kangaroo meat.
I heard about it when my friend went to live there, and yeah, kangaroo burgers, is that a thing?
I think I've been abroad for 8 years, and for me, I don't know. It's our national emblem, and eating it doesn't sound right to me. But I've tried it. I think they exist, but I can't tell you much about that. I'm sorry.
But have you eaten kangaroo meat? Like, is that like no? Is that like us eating beef, for example? I mean, do you eat it that much?
No, this 10 years ago, this started coming out.
All right.
It was like it's served in a curry, and I've only eaten it once, and I don't want to eat it again. I think people do eat it. It's something new that's being introduced.
Okay.
We can eat it, and probably if there's any Australians watching, maybe they eat it all the time. But as far as I know, I don't know anybody that's eating. I've never seen like McDonald's a kangaroo burger. Mm-mm.
Okay.
No,
Maybe
no.
there's a gap in the market for that. Yeah.
I don't know. And I like the animals, but it doesn't sound right to be eating the national emblem, does it?
No, not really. Not really. Okay. All right then. So yeah, talking about food, another stereotype we have of Australians is that you love having barbecues and drinking a lot of beer.
Yes. Barbies. So in Australia, Barbies. Barbies is very common. Most people have, there's this song. So I'm going to sing for you. Give me a home among the gum trees, the mighty gum trees, the sheep or two, a kangaroo, clothesline out the back. And anyway, the song goes on. But basically, the great Australian dream is to have like a house, and you have a veranda with a barbecue and just a lot of land and like barbecue, snacks in the barbie. And yes, it's very, very common. And it's nice. This is one thing that I love about Australia. Beer, I'm not a beer drinker. I've never liked beer. It stinks to me personally. Foster's, VB. But a lot of people drink beer. It's not something that I like, but it doesn't mean in pubs, during barbecues, it's very, very common for people to drink beer. Yes.
Is it difficult for you to say barbecue? Do you like always say Barbie instead of barbecue?
It depends who I'm speaking to. So if I know now we're talking, so I actually sang a little bit and I got into the spirit. So because I was in my own little world, it came out naturally. But if I'm talking to Australians, then I would say Barbie. But if I'm talking to foreigners, then barbecue. So it depends who I'm speaking to. Yeah.
Okay. All right, good. Let's have a look then. What other stereotypes do we have? Yeah, well, talking about this one, barbecue, you know, you're kind of famous, I think, for shortening almost every word. Is that true?
Who has time to say like the full word? In Australia, we just simply either, okay, maybe it's not time, but maybe it's just, A lot of people say that Australians are easygoing, and maybe they just don't want to be using this full word, like McDonald's, Macca's, Arvo, afternoon, ambulance, ambo, service state, like a servo. For me, I would never say service station. I would always say I'm going to stop at the servo or bottle shop. Can you stop at the bottler and get me, I don't know, give me a 6-pack? These things I would never say bottle shop. If you have bottler.
Bottle-o, that's brilliant. I like that. And servo as well for a service station.
Mm-hmm.
Servo. I love it. I did a video about words that English, like British words that we do like that. Arvo, we often use arvo. I don't know if it's American, if it's Australian, and we've kind of stolen it from the Australians, but sandwich, we say sarnie.
Sanga in Australia.
All right, Sanga. Nice. You are, yeah, I think we've got a lot of them in British English, but I think you are definitely the kings of shortening words. Defo.
Yes, there's some that I use and some that I don't use. For example, defo. Yeah, I don't think I've never used that one, but I would understand it.
Defo. You got to introduce defo. Okay, I'm gonna finish up with it's not really a stereotype, but I think it's a misunderstanding or misconception of Australia that I reckon that maybe 60-70% of people watching would say that the capital of Australia is Sydney. And actually, what is it?
It's Canberra. Canberra. Why does everybody think that it's Sydney?
Honestly, it's crazy. Yeah, Canberra. I remember I used to do a pub quiz on English. It was an English immersion weekend that I used to do, and that used to be one of the quiz questions that I used to ask everybody. And I reckon 1 out of 10 people would get that correct.
I think it's because of Sydney Opera House. Because whenever you see Australia, if you do a Google search, type in Australia, I'm sure in the top 10, 20 search, you'll see the Sydney Opera House. And for this reason, people associate Sydney Opera House, Australia, capital city. But do you know why Canberra is a capital city of Australia?
I don't know anything about Canberra apart from the fact that it's the capital city of Australia. I think that's another reason people think it's Sydney. They know Sydney, they can visualize Sydney, but Canberra is just like a word.
Oh, well, because Sydney and Melbourne are the most populated, and economically they're economically, and a lot of people are living there. When the first fleet came to Sydney, and they settled also in Melbourne, and then these two cities started developing, but they were developing too fast. And then there was a rivalry between Sydney and Melbourne. So should Sydney be the capital, or should Melbourne be the capital? Canberra is actually in the middle, in between Sydney and Melbourne. And that's why Canberra is there. Well, actually, that's maybe one story. But then my husband's actually a geography teacher, and he was telling me, maybe it's also to take pressure off the two bigger cities, but also to make a city in the center, so that you could have, these could be the business and life cities for living, similar to in Brazil, what you have. I think they have Brasilia, they have Rio de Janeiro and Sao Paulo. So similar situation in Australia. So a third city was used to be the capital city.
Yeah. Oh, okay, interesting. Very interesting. Okay, well, now you know. Thanks for that little geography and history lesson.
To break some myths.
Yeah. Okay, good. Well, there you go. Yeah, out of interest, what you said you've been living in Croatia now, right, for 8 years. So, what is the one thing that you miss about Australia?
Food. Like, in Australia, a lot of people, Australia has a lot of different cultures there, but some things that, curry or Lebanese food, Turkish food, you can find that in different countries, but you can't find Vegemite, Tim Tams. Tim Tams, can't find that anywhere. Vegemite, Tim Tams, gravy. I miss gravy. Slurpees. I miss Slurpees. Okay, Slurpees aren't traditional food in Australia, but some food and wine. Sorry, excuse me. Some food and wine I do miss, and I think yes.
It's the sangers.
And the sangers, and sausages and the barbie, and Bunnings sausage sizzles. Sausage sizzles also. Food, clearly.
Yeah, good. What did you say? Tim Tam. What was the second thing you said? Tim Tams.
Have you ever heard of Tim Tams?
No. What are they?
It's the best biscuit in the world. So Arnott's in Australia, they sell Tim Tams, and basically it's a biscuit with a chocolate coated biscuit. And there's two biscuits inside. You have a layer of chocolate, and around it's coated in chocolate. But you have double coat Tim Tams. Oh, if you ever see them in the store, buy it, and then buy another 10 and send it to me.
Okay.
They're so fantastic. But also, Tim Tam should be eaten like you bite one side and then you bite the other side, and you use it as a straw with your coffee, and then you eat it, or tea. It's also great with tea. And then you get like a hit of chocolate and coffee or tea. This is one thing I miss from Australia.
It sounds like fine cuisine. That, yeah, brilliant.
Yes, really.
Australian, brilliant, nice one. I'll look out for it. There's a few. Well, they're more like American, European shops that have started to appear here, and they sell a lot of English and American snacks over here that don't generally exist. So I will keep my eye out for Tim Tams. With a bit of luck, I'll try one and let you know.
Please
if not,
do.
I'll have to go to Australia. Cool. Well, excellent. It sounds good. Yeah, all those stereotypes, I think you've cleared them up, and it's been, thanks for that. It's been good to have you on the channel, Adriana.
Thanks, Greg, for having me.
All right, brilliant. Well, thank you, Adriana. I've really enjoyed talking to you. I hope our viewers have enjoyed it too. So remember, guys, to check out part 2 of this video, in which Adriana will be asking me about some stereotypes that exist about English people, and not all of them are good. So check out part 2 to that video by clicking the link there, and I will see you very soon. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.